So welcome back to the Defiant Spirit podcast. I'm here in studio with Yehuda HaLevi.
Hello there.
This is a regular thing for you and I. That's probably like our fourth,
I think
fifth
so.
episode, something like
Fourth.
that. So today I thought we would mix it up and move away from the Enneagram, although I always bring it back somehow, and talk about where you are in life because you're at one of those, just I call them those crossroads. We all come to them. You have a handful of them in your life where you can just feel sort of destinies colliding and opportunities are exploding. And anybody who doesn't know, Yehuda is, as we're recording this, almost to college graduation. So maybe that's a good jumping off point. What's going on inside of you?
Well, I'm holding on to the fact that I have two papers left to write and that I'm not done yet. And everyone's like, no, you're done. I know. um, the way that I've been looking at it, and people have been asking me, how do you feel? What are your plans? I think at first I resisted it quite a bit. This past month in particular, something happened in the last 2 weeks where I've just been enjoying the feeling of completion. And it's not necessarily about, what's next, but I've had a great time here and I've learned a lot and I've met a lot of great people and just kind of celebrating that because I feel like it's way too easy to just figure out, hey, what's next, what's next, what's next. And you can miss what's right in front of you. And I've been trying really hard not to miss that.
That's true at any moment, but especially at these crossroads. I was just somewhere yesterday and somebody who knows you said, "Oh, Yehuda's graduating. Where's he going to work next year?" It's like, I don't know. I don't care. Like he needs to figure it out on his time frame and enjoy the ride. So it's just this built-in assumption in our world of you go from college to a job.
Yeah. There's a truth to that though. Like there is that pressure of like I have a degree, time to like make a livelihood and start building. But I also think about it from the other point of view. I've been in school in some sort of like educational structure since I was 6 years old. And now for the first time, I won't be in that. I won't have that obligation. I'll have finished everything there is to do education wise, unless I, decide to go to get further education, like grad school or something. And I plan on that, but I'm asking the question of what's life like without that structure of summers and winter break and spring break that I've been working through on this timeline since I was 6.
Mhm.
What's that like? And I'm not going to do nothing. I have things in mind, but it'll be interesting to see, what's out there besides what I've been used to my whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I'll continue to encourage you to resist the pull of structure and security for structure and security's sake, right? There's a time and place for it. And like you just named, you've only known that. So you have to get to know yourself outside of that structure to see who you really are, challenge your identity, try on new identities. I think it's a super exciting time. But again, I know it's not easy because that's not what the world around you tends towards or pushes you towards. Um, if we had stayed in Israel, as you know, you'd be wrapping up the army right about now.
Yeah, all my friends are the people that I'm in contact with. They're finishing up and they're like, "You're so lucky. You went to college. You're finishing college right away." And they're all off to start their degrees, and I would have been doing that too,
Although
finishing
they
up.
take a year off.
A lot of them do,
Yeah.
like, like a teal, like a post army trip.
So this is kind of the equivalent of that for you, right? Post army, post college.
Yeah, I mean, for the next 6 months or so, I'll be traveling. In a week from today, I'll be leaving for Israel to lead our birthright trip at CU. And it's crazy because Friday graduation, Monday El Al flight to Israel for a 10-day trip.
You should be used to that.
I am. I mean, it's very reminiscent of Friday bar mitzvah, Monday Aliyah
You're
when I
welcome.
was 13. But this will be my third year in a row of having that quick turnaround, except this time it's kind of a finishing point in some sense. Um, so it'll kind of be the last thing I do as a student is lead this trip for Maya's grade, and I'm doing it with my best friend, and he he and I are very excited. So this will be my goodbye in some ways.
So exciting. What would you say some of your takeaways from college are? Truths, maybe a parent is going to pass this particular episode on to their kid who's in college or heading into college. What are some of the deeper takeaways?
um, I think one thing I've realized is that college today is not what it used to be. And I've talked to a lot of people like my grandparents about this in particular. And in today's world, we have the privilege, if you're, in a well-off situation where the norm is to go to college and find yourself. And it's kind of a backwards way of thinking about it. You should probably go into college pursuing a specific degree with a specific career path, right? If you're paying all this money for education, know what you're going to be doing. Like, no, oh, I want to go to law school. This is my path. Med school, this is my path. Um, and in today's world, it's not so clear because pursuing a career today isn't just based off of what avenue of education you want to pursue. You can get a degree and use it for something completely different. And the entrepreneurial world allows us to do that, where you can pursue a degree in psychology and then start a business of your own, build a brand for yourself on social media. And you're doing that these days.
And I'm not using any of my degrees.
Yeah. And so I would say that while college is obviously the time to pursue an education, people should be aware that they're going into it to learn a lot more than just schooling and facts about this and that and the world. If you're lucky, you'll leave with a tangible set of skills that you can apply somewhere. A lot of the time, you're going to have to build and search for those skills on your own. I know a lot of people that spend their time in college building their own skill sets and adding things to their toolbox that's really unrelated to their education. So I think people should just be aware of that. And I didn't know that going in. I thought choose what you want to study and start thinking about your path. And it changed from what I thought it would be entirely.
I do think universities are going to be totally different in the coming years because of what you're saying. You know, you can't have this much structure on young people knowing where they are all the time, right? Having them over activitied in the afternoons and programmed and all this stuff, and then go off to college and just do that same programming that your grandparents did, or even I did to a lesser degree. You're going to have to place to blow off steam, right? And to go wide and explore and experience A and B. The nature of education is changing. Like what's the role of AI in all of this process? Even when you started college, AI really wasn't a thing.
No, not at all. I mean, I remember it was finals at the end of my sophomore year. Everyone was talking about this new thing, ChatGPT. I talk about it as if like it's like in my day we didn't have AI, but I remember when it was introduced as like a real. I mean, it's been around for a while, but as like a real way that any person can go on and type in a prompt and they get a polished answer. And I'm watching as slow. At first, there was this huge pushback from like the administration and professors. If you get caught using AI, you're going to get sent. It's plagiarism. You're going to get screwed over, whatever. Now, slowly, this semester, my teacher taught us a little bit about how to use AI to better conduct research and they're teaching us how to use it a little bit more now,
Hmm.
where it's not this big feared thing, because honestly, they can't really control how students use it. And if they can't control how students use it, might as well teach them to use it in like ethical ways that preserves academic integrity. Um, I bet that by the time like Aviv is in college, it's going to be a huge part of how the learning process and the education process is run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also what we're teaching, because I don't need to know things anymore for knowing's sake. If there's a reason in the process of learning something, but there's 1,000 things that I just memorized back in the day, it's no longer necessary. I would argue it's a waste of time as opposed to learning how to use Chat GPT, because it's not, you plug something in Chat GPT, it's not ready to go. You got to iterate, you got to really work it. And through the working process, I'm learning about the subject matter, right? So it's an art. And I do think that in the coming, not so distant future, it's going to be part of the journey, not sort of, oh, ChatGPT happens over here. I do believe that education can be restructured because of it,
So lesson one is you're not here to get an education per se in the traditional sense.
or an education that you weren't expecting.
You're and you can say that this is education, but you're here to add new tools to your toolbox and integrate that into who you are. Um, Again, obviously, if you're pursuing like an engineering degree, you're getting educated. But so many people that I know, their education is not traditional anymore. It's very versatile, and it's something that they've also built for themselves, and they've pursued it with their own will and outside of the classroom as well.
Nice. So that's one top thing a young person needs to know going into college. What are some others?
Say that at some point while you're in college, the dynamic between you and the people around you starts to shift. At first, you're like a sponge and you're soaking in the experience of what it's like to live, away from home, what it's like to have this independence that you've never had before. And, really doing a wide dive into this new environment. And for me, somewhere around the halfway point, it started to shift where now the guys that I considered older brothers had graduated or were graduating. And there was a new group of people coming in. And for myself and for other people, it's like an opportunity to be an older brother. I should say this in the terms of brothers because I shared this at our senior night for my fraternity's like little graduation thing we did where the whole brotherhood came and everyone got to share their 2 cents. And I said, enjoy it, make mistakes, dive into new experiences, do everything that comes your way and be a yes man. But when the time comes, really try and enjoy what it's like to be a mentor, to be an older brother, to be the figure who has a little bit more of a thing or two to say about a thing or two for the other guys. And that's something that I really valued and I didn't expect when I became a junior and a senior. And I had all these opportunities to lead and lead great, courses and events for this younger, group coming in. It was very fulfilling for me, and it's something that I would take away from the second half of college and really enjoy.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl calls that self-transcendence, right? Like there's only so much you can get if it's about you. And then you just get to this point where it has to be about other. And I did see that about the halfway mark of your journey. It was no longer just about Yuta doing Yuta. And there was this self-transcendence piece. Does that resonate?
Yeah, and I don't think I was in a natural situation because October 7th really like pushed that and made it happen a lot quicker than it otherwise might have. But I've seen it with other people around me too, where there's that point, and I see Maya starting to do that, where she's now like leading the dance competition for her sorority, and it was like her first big, step into a leadership position. I was very proud of her, and it's cool to see with other people.
So let's talk about the shadows, the dark side of college. We can talk about those that were thrust upon you, because I can think of two in particular. And or what are the shadows and shells? Great podcast. Why can't I ever remember which comes first?
Shells and shadows.
Shells and shadows. That's Yudah's podcast. Um, what are some of the darker sides of college?
Um, if you don't know how to think for yourself in an environment like this, it is incredibly easy to get swept up into the wave of what's popular and what's cool. And I don't mean that in like I, the way that people act. I mean quite blatantly drugs,
And hard drugs.
hard drugs. And there's so many other things that I could talk about like the shadow of a college campus, because there's so many, like there's dynamics that go on here and culture here that is, could be better, but it manifests in the most destructive way with, in my opinion, drugs.
What are people doing?
Um, a lot of cocaine, a lot of ketamine, and obviously ketamine has therapeutic benefits, but it's used in an unhealthy and destructive way. Um, a lot of, I'm even hesitant to put alcohol on the list because next to a lot of these things, drinking is the least of the issues.
Mhm.
And just, party drugs, like going doing Molly at a concert, which for some people it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this once or twice. For others, it leads into carrying around these drugs and looking for excuses to go out to do them.
Mhm.
The drinking and the going out to the bars is an excuse to be doing these drugs. And um, I think it's so easy to get swept up into that, especially if you're just wanting to say, I'm going to contradict myself. I said be a yes man. I mean that in terms of your variety of experiences. Don't just be confined to who you think you are now. Be open to learning and adding new traits to your personality and your interests. That doesn't mean go and try coke because I'm at CU Boulder and that's what we do here. Um,
Yeah.
it's hard to watch.
Yeah. It's hard to witness as a parent. I mean, I did all the basic things, but Coke wasn't even an option. I mean, I'm sure it was in theory, but I've heard it's just sort of a given now at any given party.
Yeah, I mean, I people have gone up to Maya and her in her sorority and have told her like, "Hey, like I'm hazing you like as a joke. Oh, like I'm gonna make you do coke." She didn't find that funny, and there is that push. It's like I do it, so you should do it. There's like this underlying like guilt about it, where it's like, yeah, like it's just a thing I do now, but like you got to do it with me. People don't feel like proud talking about it, and people feel like a sense of like accomplishment sometimes when they say, "Yeah, like I blacked out, slept in a bush." Like it's kind of like a hero story, and my roommates and I, like we all have our fun story of our 21st birthday, and that's like basic stuff. But there is like this shame when people talk about some of. It's like, hey, like look what I got. Like it's this like this it lives in the shadows almost. It's what
Mhm.
happens in the bathroom stalls at the bar. It's not something that's very open, and I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. I think some things are worthy of being stigmatized,
Yeah.
right? I mean, not everything needs to be out and, you know, acceptable or revered. I mean, I just had a podcast with Stephen Brandwain, who I know you had on your show, and we talked a lot about the journey of plant medicine, but I was really only talking about it from people my age. I don't know if it's true with your age, but for my age, it can also be used as an escape, and but it can also be really purposeful and take you deeper into who you are as self exploration. I just don't see any redeeming side of Coke in a stall at a party.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And I think that leads me to like another tip, but also shadow is that it's sometimes easy to forget that there's like almost an unlimited amount of opportunities to connect with people and become friends with new kinds of people here. You'll find about every different kind of person there is in a campus like this. And you obviously won't connect with every single person, but it's really easy to make a group of friends the first year of college and say, that's it. I'm comfortable. This isn't high school. We have the great privilege of now, it's not like I'm here because I need to be. I chose to be here, and I also get to choose my friends, my hobbies, what I do with my free time. And if you think, I think about it almost like a TV show,
Hmm.
and I think everyone walks around like they're to some degree the main character in their own show. And if you look at your 4 years of college like seasons, it's amazing to watch if you let yourself connect and new people in new ways. So many new characters come along the way. Um, I think back to some of my best friends I didn't even meet until my junior year, which, that's over halfway through college. And people come and go, and that's okay. And it's not personal, and friend groups aren't solidified, they're fluid here. And I think that's how it should be. So, really being open to whoever comes in and out of your life and knowing that it's just an opportunity for more connection is what I recommend.
Yeah, there's a great danger in just creating a static routine. I mean, I think you did that the first couple of years, and you got to this point where you're like, I don't know why I'm just so bored with it. And we talk about like you're doing the same thing over and over,
Yeah.
right? And I've seen you the past couple of years really explore more. I mean, I think a lot of it did have to do with October 7th, and we can circle back to that. But yeah, like try new things and open yourself to new people. Um, so I guess along those lines, maybe it's too soon to talk about, but I do think a big one, especially for young men, but I guess for women too, is the relationships that you have from an intimate perspective, from intimacy. Because I look back on my college days and I do have a lot of shame having explored my sexuality and um, in a kind of a reckless way, definitely a reckless way. Not necessarily always the most dignified in the way I treated women. And I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your advice to people coming in from that aspect of things.
Yeah, I talked about this on another episode with Bo and Aiden Foster, and we talked about a lot of similar things that we're talking about now. But on a college campus, unlike any other time before in human history, we have such a concentrated amount of young people, and you go out to any party or bar, and there's this feeling of excess. There's so many options. There's so many um, options for romantic partners and relationships. And when you find something good, you're more likely to pass it up because you always think there's something better out there,
Mm,
another option, something else. There's always more. And it seems a lot simpler to live back in the day in the village where you met, the neighbor's daughter at, you know, around bar mitzvah age, and you knew that that was the person that you were going to spend the rest of your life with.
mhm.
Here you may meet that person, have the interaction, and blow them off for a better opportunity that comes your way,
Yeah.
thinking it'll be what you want, thinking that there's always that next good option. And I definitely, I don't know if shame is the right word. I don't regret any decision I've made here, but I definitely see that, a lot of my time here, um, I've looked over some quality people because I thought that, there's always more out there. And now I'm in a relationship. The first time I've been in a relationship in any committed way since I since high school. And I, I had that moment. I was like, okay, do I throw this away because I'm just interested in, the chase, or do I refuse to let something go, let a person go who cares for me so deeply, would give anything for me, and all they want to do is just like show me love. I made the decision. I don't know. I honestly don't know how. I did make the decision not to throw it away. I felt like a moment of clarity, and I don't know how, because the working against great odds of there's so much out there. Um, what if something's better? And you have to live with your decisions at the end of the day.
Yeah, this FOMO culture. I mean, it's a lot of what you're describing I experienced 30 years ago. Doesn't change.
True.
But there is an amped up feeling of FOMO because you have so many more choices now, right? Just like on a spring break, there's so many choices. Like when I was back in college, like we thought maybe about, a Florida thing or whatever. Nobody really went to Mexico. Maybe you went to Cozumel or something, but or Cabo. But I don't know. There's just like so much. Like I didn't even think about going overseas for a year abroad. So I've watched that in your world and Maya's world now. Like there's just so many opportunities.
And I don't, I want to like clarify, I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's amazing that we live in a world with so many opportunities and so much choice. I mean, there's a great power in having that choice. Um, and if you know what you want, you're even more connected to the network of people around you, and you're looking for something in particular with, like, you have a vision of the person that you want to be with.
Mhm.
You're probably more likely to find that kind of person, knowing that, because there's so many more options available, and you're clear, and you can better. I don't know where I heard this, some book of just having the willpower to say at the beginning, okay, this isn't for me. Next, this isn't for me. Next, without getting so involved and just knowing what you're looking for. I think if you don't know what you're looking for,
Mhm.
it can be very easy to just get lost in the culture.
Yeah, and even something as simple as porn, right? There's another example of it. Right? Back in my day, it was like two choices: Playboy or Penthouse. That was the choice. And because I counsel a lot of, not a lot, I counsel a few 20 somethings, and it's wreaking havoc on them. The instant access, the myriad of choices, and then that saps the life out of them for life over here, right? And so that's where, all these choices, it's like, it's just overwhelming. I wouldn't say it's good or bad. I think it is kind of bad, but it's just overwhelming.
I saw, like, this is ridiculous, but I saw like a meme on the internet. I don't know when. It was like a guy on Pornhub on like page 500. You can go different, like on the
You
internet.
think I'm going to say, yeah, I know how you can go to,
No,
no,
on
I'm
the
just kidding.
internet, you can there's
Oh,
when you
yes.
go to search
Like a
something, you can
Google.
see so many different
Oh,
pages,
got it.
and he's on like page 500 something, and he's like, none of them are like her.
Right.
Like endless, 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 and yet it's not what a guy's actually looking for, because none of them are like her. It's just like, it's mind blowing, because in your day it was, well, which of the premium channels do you want? One, two, or three? Um,
We had four.
okay.
But yeah, and now you're on it, and it's like, oh my God, am I going to watch this live TV thing? Am I going to Netflix? Am I going to go? It's like, oh, it's just fatigue sometimes. And you're right. The guys that I've counseled, it's the constant search for the perfect her. And a teacher of mine, Dennis Prager, says that people forget that other people aren't a la carte. I'll take a little of this, send this back to the kitchen. I'll have a little more of those, right? People are the whole thing. And if you're constantly looking for the best this and the best that, I've seen this overwhelm, shut down, and then it ends up as sort of a nothing, right? There's no pursuit, there's no relationship.
Yeah.
Or it just becomes a hookup culture, right? It's just like hook up next. And this transactional quality that I see in general, but I see it especially the 20 somethings.
No, it definitely exists, and I think it takes time to break out of that when that's the state that you've been in, and I think that happens through giving a lot because everything about that culture is related to receiving. Like, what can I get out of this? Versus being in like a relationship, any kind of relationship, obviously, is about it's more you realize that it's more fulfilling to like give to someone and to letting another person give to you, which is different than receiving. Letting another person give to you is in a way giving as well. I think that's at least for me in my relationship. That is what helped me open up enough to the point where I was willing to accept love and
Mhm.
accept being in a loving relationship. And they're like letting go of that FOMO and letting go of that, safety and security as a man of being able to, be independent and have any option at my disposal. It's like, no, I fell in love with that ability to give to someone else, and it's not doesn't mean it's perfect. Honestly, the second I made that commitment, it brought up so much more that I was had to face and let go. Um, because I knew that in myself I had been avoiding any sort of commitment. And once I made that decision, it's like I followed my gut instinct. It said commit, commit, commit. And I did it. And then like the mind and the ego just took me on a long ride. And it's been great, but also really challenging to work through my own inner battle. And you realize it's not related to another person. It's your own uh it's your own reality that you're working within, and being able to open that up yourself, but letting someone else open that up brings a lot of growth, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that that's a very important piece to the college journey is to start welcoming the inner battle, not just, right? Because you think of college and you think of good times. It's all fun, right? As opposed to, yeah, and you have to confront the shadows, the shells and the shadows of what's underneath. You don't have to, but you're given the opportunity. I've seen you being presented multiple times with some of those shadows and work through it in a very profound way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was all by choice. I don't
Yeah.
think it often is, because why would we choose to open things up when sometimes it's easier to not? It's just easier to sweep things under the rug. But I do think that that's what I mean when I say that education isn't just about what you're learning in class. It's what are you doing outside? What are you doing outside of your classes when you have the ability to choose your entire schedule? Are you working on yourself? Are you working on your relationships? Are you giving to your community? Um, all those types of things. And I'm not saying that it's not like good to immerse yourself in the culture here and really be part of it, because I did that. Um, I just realized that at some point I wanted to do it my way and not anyone else's.
That's a big thing. Colleges have always been associated with sort of a revolutionary culture mindset. You look at the civil rights movement or feminism or whatever it is, there's a disruptive quality in a person in their, late teens, early 20s, and also the environment that fosters these things. It can go, bad too. We've seen since October 7th, but I've seen you've taken on a different type of revolution, and it's an inner revolution. You've done something very countercultural, which is
Isn't that college?
yes, except you've done it in a very different way. Well, yes and no. Yes, it's supposed to be countercultural, but isn't it interesting that everybody starts marching in the same steps, right? The cocaine thing or whatever it is. You've done something very countercultural in the year 2025, and that is a year or two ago or three ago, you became an Orthodox Jew or an observant Jew, right? Which is extremely countercultural in a CU Boulder University setting.
I mean, it's almost countercultural because what goes on campus, and like I see, it is that the disruptive quality. But yeah, I like look back at that timing, and I had just met some very important people to me who kind of gave me some of the answers I'd been looking for a while. Went to Israel for the summer. October 7th happens, and I felt an odd drawing towards like I want to wear a kippah. I don't know exactly how quickly it happened. I think at first it started with tzitzit, and
Tzitzit are the fringes on your
yeah, these right here. And then it started with this, and then a kippah
kippahs, the yarmulke.
right here. And what happened, and I've shared this on my podcast before, is that I was getting so much positive like feedback from other people who saw it and were happy to see it. And I didn't expect that. I had my guard up. I was like, all right, like come fuck with me. Like, let's do it. Like I'll one phone call and you'll have like all the other guys who are wearing their kippas. Um, Granted, not a lot of students, but people in the community coming over to campus with their flags and whatnot. But I remember there was a girl who, like, I was wearing my keep on campus for the first time. She runs up to me, she hugs me, and she's crying because her friend just got drafted, and was going right into Gaza and to fight, and she didn't know what to do, and they hadn't heard from her friend, and turned out to be okay. But that happened, and I had other people coming up to me and saying like really positive things, and um, I realized that when you lead not with pride, but when you lead with love for your people and faith, that it only brings more of that your way. Um, Granted, I was nervous at first, and I had my guard up and all of that, but I was doing it because in a backwards way, I felt more protected wearing it than not at that point. For the same reason, when people ask me, well, what do you do about homework and your exams when there's holidays and you keep Shabbat and you're not on your phone and all this stuff? And I said, because I'm going out of my way not to do my homework on Shabbat and holidays, I know that I'll have better success when I do them at a different point.
Mhm.
Just because I'm going out of my way to be visibly Jewish on campus, I know that only good things will come to me. That is the
Which is a
mindset.
pretty bold statement in the year 2025 on a college campus.
I mean, it is, but like I was I was really, and I still am, but in that moment in particular, I was really driven by that deep kind of like bitachon, like that deep trust. And I learned a great lesson about like what it means to trust through doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's totally counterintuitive that you feel stronger and safer wearing your kippah on campus, even in the height of anti-Zionism, because you're leading with your values, right? That's your purpose. And again, it's like most people would say hide your Judaism. I mean, on college campuses like Columbia, I heard they were encouraging kids to take off their kippah. So it's a bold, brave statement what you just said.
Yeah, and um, I've heard that from people on our campus as well. Like, I want to hide. I want to take the Jewish star necklace off. But I mean, now looking back, I don't think I was ever in any real danger. I've seen the anti-Zionism on our campus is quite laughable, and
Yeah, although
on some
you,
other campuses, like it's could be dangerous, but like realistically, I have come to realize in talking so much about like anti-Semitism that it's not as much of a threat as as sometimes Jews ourselves make it seem to be. And
Well,
we're,
the FBI was called in, and you had death threats. So like,
yes,
don't minimize it.
yes, but when you get down to like the core of it, I do firmly believe that like we do live in a country that is very protective of the Jewish people,
Agreed.
and we do have free speech, which allows people to say some pretty terrible things. But in terms of action, I don't think that like I never really felt at any point on campus that I was in immediate harm's way. And maybe that is because I felt that connection and that protection. And I'm sure that's not true for everyone on every campus, but I think bringing that idea here has brought a lot of comfort to people who have been afraid.
Well, I think also what you're saying is because it's so central to your identity and you're willing to stand up for it, potentially die for it. I don't think I'm overstating it for you, that it's not scary, but if you have it as a tangential part of your identity, right? If it's just a small piece of you, you live in far more fear. The Jews that I know that are Zionists and proud and loud, they have very little fear of the consequences of being loud and proud.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I have this big Israeli flag outside of our house along with an American flag, and people say to me all the time, like, don't you feel nervous having that up? I'm like, no, I feel so like empowered, right? Because this is who I am. You want to throw a rock through my window? Throw a rock through my window. But like, I imagine if I didn't have it up there, I feel a little more of that insecurity and that doubt. And I see that strong Israeli identity piece of you coming out.
It's definitely been a big piece of my time here in the second half. Um,
Do you think you would have gotten to this place Jewishly without October 7th?
I I couldn't tell you. Like maybe, but I don't know any other way that things happened, you know? So could be, but I'm happy with the way that things worked out for my journey and not for what happened, but like when terrible things happen, there's a balance. There's a balance in our world wherever, and I firmly believe that. And when something terrible happens, like we saw overseas in Israel, um, there's things that happen in the world that bring those scales back up to balance and neutral. And we we saw the benefits of like a Jewish awakening here on campus, and it happened within me, it happened within other people, and it was like that like restoration of balance through this like immense love and this immense unity. And um, I know it was not only like crucial to my journey, but people around the world. And it never justifies the cost at which it came, but there's nothing we can do to change it. And so I think looking back and saying we're better off now is how we have to live because, we're progressing in a positive direction.
And that's, it's an ancient message by the Jewish people. Viktor Frankl calls it transforming tragedy into triumph, right? And that's our duty, because otherwise it's either meaningful or meaningless. And if it's meaningless, it dies two deaths. All the people who died and the opportunity to do something good with it. So I've seen you do that, both individually and collectively. I guess it's not exactly a takeaway for people who are going into college or whatever, because it's a unique experience. Hopefully it's unique, but darkness always descends in some way or another. And I saw you and the people that you surrounded yourself with really rise up and transform tragedy into triumph. Yeah,
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. Any other sort of thoughts about the journey?
No, I mean, I just looking back, I think it's important to appreciate where you are when everything is unfolding before you because I look back on many moments in college that I was overstressed and overly anxious about things that didn't matter in the end. And going out of college, I try and appreciate the crossroads because I know that I'll look back at some point and I'll be appreciative of it. Whether I'm appreciative of it now or down the road is up to me. Hopefully both. Because there are moments where I look back and I'm so thankful. Back then I wasn't. And I'm trying to bring that almost like looking through the eyes of my future self into this crossroads and saying, what a beautiful moment. Who knows how it'll unfold.
That's beautiful. Let me end with a very long blessing for you. Not a traditional blessing, but let me just tell your story briefly. I'm not going to tell the whole story. And anybody watching this long is the end of the podcast is probably your grandmother and a couple others, so they'll appreciate this. Um, for anybody who doesn't know, you'd have had at least the least traditional high school journey I think anybody I've ever known. You started in north of Israel, not exactly. Then you started officially in the middle of Israel. Then we picked up and moved back to the States, and you started in another high school. And then we went through some really tough times, and you went off to a therapeutic boarding school, which was an unbelievable journey into itself. And then you came back and you finished up in COVID on a Zoom high school and graduated with people you had never even met. I bet you couldn't even pick one of the people in your graduating class out of a lineup. Is that fair?
Pretty fair.
Pretty close. I mean, a couple maybe, but
Yeah.
they were either behind masks or on Zoom, and you never actually met them in person until graduation day. Like, holy shit, that's disrupted. That is not easy, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I really saw you tormented and struggling and working through a lot of deep identity issues, both internally and thrust upon you. And it was a heavy lift. And then you turned yourself around, you dug deep to the point where most people don't know this, but you earned a scholarship to CU Boulder, and it's a character-based scholarship, and it was just a symbol, an outward symbol of the inner transformation that I know you had begun. You certainly hadn't completed, and you're still working on it like the rest of us. But that really, just the fact that you got to college, your grades were always good, but it was the rest of the stuff that, I don't know, we weren't exactly sure the direction you were headed. And so you got to this place of really having worked your ass off to get to college, which I think most people start at that point with their journey. But for you, it was midway along the journey. And I watched you come and explore and open yourself up to the possibilities here. And then I watched you really ground down into community, creating the type of community that I know you longed for that you didn't get in the high school experience, and you really built community, and you didn't just passively wait for it, you built it, whether it was taking leadership role with your fraternity every step of the way, or whether it was rising up in the face of your people's adversity after October 7th and creating SSI, right? SSI, Students Supporting Israel, the local chapter here at CU Boulder, and taking the lead. I think you were president of it for the first year or two.
Like after the first semester, took over. Yeah.
You just
President.
you stepped up, you took it on, you worked your ass off during that time in ways that nobody ever expected anyone to have to, and nobody expected you to do, but you did that. And to the point where your grades suffered, your school suffered, your mental health suffered, and you took a little bit of a leave during that period. And, we're willing to even lose a semester and repeat it if you had to. You didn't have to, but I remember those conversations, and I was supportive of you doing whatever you had to do to not look back with regrets. And that's not a typical response by a 20-year-old probably at the time. Um, and yet you were called and you rose to the occasion. And then I watched you just deepen your identity, your Jewish commitment, your faith. Some people made their faith wane, and yours it waxed, it grew stronger. And you took on observance, again, countercultural Saturdays when everybody else is partying. You were partying, but you were doing it at a Sabbath table with blessings and divrei Torah, words of Torah, and so forth. and not using, electronics and all these things that are just like hard enough in life, but you did it in a college campus setting. And I watched you do it and grow and deepen and treating, women like the rest of us in one way, and then shifting to this place of deep love and intimacy with Danica, and um, really coming to terms with who you are and who you're not, and letting go of this compulsion to have to go out into the world and move away from Boulder. You're going to be, as you know, staying here next year. And again, I think that's countercultural. Most people believe that after college you have to leave, or else you're a failure. And what you said is, I'm not done here. This is my tribe. These are my people. This is my community. And yeah, I'm going to go explore for a little bit, but I'm going to try out my roots here. And to me, that is like such a defiant stand, as Frankl calls it. Each of those a defiant stand unto itself. And just watching you grow and evolve and become so self-transcending in service of the people around you, your family, your friends, your community, your tribe. And so I don't know what lies ahead. I don't really care, because I know that the man I'm sitting across from is not the same man who entered this place, and is a man who has faced adversity. And there's a saying that says, circumstances don't make a man, they reveal him. And I think you've been revealed multiple times. And I think every time you're revealed, it's just this amazing, value based, purpose driven, compassionate, loving, and thoughtful man. And I could care less what your GPA is. I could care less what certificates you hang on the wall. I could care less what you choose to do with it going forward. As long as it's the same thing that I asked you when you were 5 and 10 and 15 and today. Do you think I want you to be happy? Do I think I want you to be wealthy? Do I think I want you to be successful? Or do I think I want you to be good? Which of those is my answer for you?
Good.
I don't care about, I want you to be happy, but that's not a given. Success, it's nice, but it's not essential. And wealthy, it helps, but it's not what it seems to be. But good, there's zero doubt in my mind that that's why we're here. And it's the hardest thing we'll ever do, to battle back the demons and to make choices that are truly good, not only for ourselves, but for the world. And I have seen you do this over and over again. And I could not be more proud of the man that you are, not becoming, that you are. And there's nothing else that you need to do in this lifetime other than just keep being you. So I love you. I'm proud of you. And I just really can't tell you how much I love you.
I love you. Thanks, Alba.
All right. That was a unique way to end the Defiant Spirit podcast. I won't be able to replicate that too many times, but it's an honor and privilege. So thanks, and thanks for bearing witness to this.